Investors here in Europe may be concerned about China's growth prospects, high inflation, or possible interest rate hikes. But one thing that's not in question is China's interest in Africa. A new book published this week examines China's growing engagement in Africa from the perspective of both African and Chinese civil society. For more, I'm joined by one of the book's authors, Sanou Mbaye. Mr. Mbaye is a Senegalese economist, a former African Development Bank official, and the author of a number of other books on Africa. Sanou, thank you so much for being with us here in the studio. Let me start out by asking you, what is the main message of your book?
The main message of the book is to bring together the civil society and the intellectuals from Africa, China, and the West. Because at the very beginning, you know, the West used to be very critical to Chinese involvement, decrying it as a new colonialism. The Africans were critical, saying that China was using Africa as a testing ground, as the IMF did. They were extremely critical of the concept of soft power, how it allows, you know, China to deal with corrupt leaders. They were extremely critical of unregulated investment that destroy industry. The example, most quoted example, was the textile industry. They're extremely critical of logging, negative logging on the environment, and also China hijacking the quota, African export quota. And the Chinese were advocating the win-win situation and soft power, saying that, you know, they were giving opportunity to Africa.
So we're seeing very different views from the Chinese side and from the Western side. And are you saying that your book is trying to reconcile all these viewpoints? Absolutely.
It was a breaking ground to bring together, and it was the first meeting in Nairobi. And in fact, this book is, it was born about this first meeting. And recently I was in China for the second meeting. Every 2 years now, we get the party to meet together. And
so how have things changed? I mean, clearly it was a very negative view that the West was looking towards African investments in Africa, African interest and engagement, let's just say, because it's not just investments, it's a number of other forms of engagement. How has that changed? Is it less negative today, and why?
Now, the Africans are still critical, but, you know, we are trying to move forward to be extremely more positive and to contribute our ideas to say, okay, we want to address free imbalances with regard to China and Africa.
What are the main areas, in your opinion, where you can see that imbalance most obviously with regards to the relationship? Is it trade? Is it environmental law? You know, is it jobs? Where
it is the diversification of Africa's economies. We don't want Africa to keep churning out commodities. We want Africa to climb the value chains. That means designing the partnership with China in diversifying African economies through investment, but regulated investment, through training.
So not just make things and send them away, but make things into a developed state whereby they become higher value exports.
Absolutely. And with regard to China, they gave them the opportunity to say, look, it is a bilateral argument. It is not a one-way argument. Africa are extremely being passive. You were talking about transfer of technology. But what technology? Technology is a huge area. You were talking about regulated investment. But, you know, we were investing in textile. When it was questioned, for example, in South Africa, we said, okay, we stop. We would even give money to South Africa to regulate the textile industry. Nothing comes. China stopped.
So, sir, are you saying that there is a lack of will on the part of African leadership or civil society to make this relationship, you know, to take it to the next level and to make it in a way that it is benefiting the African people? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
So what needs to change then? How can we get that will? How can we get the impetus to take hold of this relationship and create a win-win situation for Africa?
It is through our recommendation to get them to the decision maker. First, a positive reaction. The African Development Bank annual meeting was held in China. and a book came out from that. We see that really Nigeria, for example, Ghana, are being extremely more positive in their engagement, in being, more positive in the.
So they're doing it right. Nigeria and Ghana are taking steps in the right direction
Absolutely.
with regards to that relationship.
Angola are very good. The Angolans are very good in negotiating with the Chinese, but we don't see it for the time being, the positive effect on the people. So they are very good, but it will
take time.
It will take time.
Sanou, thank you so much for being with us. I'm afraid that's all we have time for, but it's been our pleasure to host you here in our studio. Mr. Sanou Mbaye is a Senegalese economist and also a former official from the African Development Bank. He's published a new book amongst other authors titled Chinese and African Perspectives on China and Africa, published in London this week.